Please welcome Kelsey Fryza. Hello, Kelsey. Thank you for joining the Wild Heart
Hello. Thank
Revolution.
you. I am so excited to be here and talk about all of the amazing planetary things happening for us. It's so exciting.
I am stoked to be in your energy again. I've been missing it. I connected deeply with it when we were face to face some time ago. So, yay for technology in the age of Aquarius, bringing the higher consciousness with the technology and arising.
I love that. Yes, I'm so grateful for all the gifts it has brought to us. It is amazing to be able to connect and see you. You have such a light, fiery energy, and I'm so excited to be in your presence again.
Yay. Okay, so let's start with a toast or a prayer to the
Okay.
Wild Heart Warriors in our light, especially our dark, and in all of our magic and glory. May we continue to elevate consciousness through honesty, humor, humility, gentle care, soul wrenching growth, and ownership. And to us, and to the full embodiment of our celestial potential in these human bodies.
Yes, Queen. Cheers to that. Thank you.
Interesting footnote to this is that Kelsey and I both have our cacao. It was unplanned, so we got some extra heart medicine for y'all today.
Yes, we do. It's so good sharing it through all of the cosmic
Yay!
connections.
Yes. So, Kelsey, I met you through the lovely Sonia G, the Moon Babes and the Light Tribe lady.
Correct.
And you do a lot of astrology with her. And as you know, I'm a huge astrology enthusiast and lover. You know, at some point, I will call myself an astrologer, but that has yet to manifest. And I just loved your grounded way. I think I even said this to you while we were going through it. I loved the way that you helped people navigate it in really digestible pieces of information, right? Because it can get overwhelming because it's a
Absolutely.
language,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how you came into this beautiful astrology energy and what your favorite parts of it are, and just a little bit about yourself. Because if you're watching the video, you see how gorgeous this specimen of a human is, but we want to hear more about you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, astrology for me started very early on in my life as a child. And like, I've always just been drawn to the stars, you know, being a star being, what's going on up there? And so that really took me into learning about myself, which is what I think astrology is such a great tool to really navigate who we are as individuals, right? And so I, you know, looked up regular astrology horoscope type things and was like, I'm a Capricorn sun and I don't really act like a Capricorn sun. And all of the little blurbs were like, okay, I can see it, but not really. So I really wanted to know there's got to be more because I know I believe in this thing. Where is the rest of it that really gets to open up? And then that's when I really knew that there was a land of astrology, right, in my teens. And started doing a lot more research that way, reading the books, doing all the things, because it was really before the internet was like popping, right? And now it's just at your fingertips all the time. And that really, I opened my eyes to really seeing all these different facets of me. And I remember, which is a really funny story, I was with my partner at the time and I was like going through my chart and like my rising sign and all of the different things and like really feeling into that. And I was like, I don't ever get along with Virgos because I have a Virgo moon. And at that time, you know, like I hadn't really met one I vibed with. Sonia now is, and we are BFFs. And so like that's totally changed. Although it came from my embodiment because he turned and looked at me and he goes, sounds like you're Virgo talking. And I was like, oh, that is not okay.
Snap.
And yeah, so that was, you know, just kind of a fun little tidbit on my journey. And then I just fell into it, and especially with all of the things that have been happening these past few years, really the past 5 years, I just dove in so intensely. And then when Sonia and I started working together, she brought me on for doing Moonbabe Society. And now I've taken over doing astrology full time for Moonbabe Society. And it's been a really beautiful space for me to expand, open up, do chart readings, you know, really answer a lot of questions that people have about their lives. How am I interacting with this person? What's going on in my business? You know, like, how do I better know my kids? Like all that kind of really fun magic. And I love being able to bring something that is from the cosmos, that is so astral, but yet it always gives us the clues. Like I call it the star keys, because it gives us so many answers if we just look at it. And there is so much back and forth with what is real in history and not, and like what's a projection, what's somebody's story. And really, when you look at the energy of the planets and then just follow their patterns, because they create patterns, it tells you exactly the energetic container. And obviously we control, how we react and respond and interact because of our free will and reactions. Yet that is such a beautiful space to be like, okay, if I lean more into this, this can show up for me. If I'm aware that I have that trigger or that, like thing that I don't love, I can go into it with this other awareness and watch how that all comes together. And it's just this beautiful dance that we get to literally look up and see. So I have just been so inspired, and I love that I get to just expand in it more and more every single day.
Yes, Queen. It is such an amazing map to our uniqueness. And this is the thing that I'm working so hard at normalizing in our culture, is that when you actually start to honor all of the different aspects of yourself and you start to understand them, there really is no more true shadow, because you're not comparing yourself to a one size fits all human model. You're actually understanding what your unique code is. And you understand, the times that you're going to rest, the times that you're going to be more expansive, the times that you're going to be able to work harder. Like, it's such a beautiful way of normalizing the fluctuation that we get to be as humans, instead of demonizing it and persecuting it, right?
Absolutely. It's such a cycle that we get to play in, like I often look at it as this, spiral dance that we do. And so a spiral will continue whether you go in or out. It goes past the same point repeatedly. And that's where we go deeper and deeper into ourselves to really understand. And the orbit of the planets does the same thing, which is why we have these conjunctions and these squares and all of that happens. And so each one of those things can pull us deeper and deeper into ourselves. And I often am like, okay, your birth chart is like your fingerprint, because people get that their fingerprint is unique. It gets that it's them. Like that is what you decided to come to Earth and be like, okay, this is my code. And yes, I can like play with that how I want. Yet if we really just sit in that, it makes our life so much easier. It's full of grace to just have this beautiful understanding. It's
yes, I know. We're gonna get so stoked here, y'all,
because this conversation,
it brings so much richness to your life. Like, I'm sure that you felt this as a kid, like I did, but our environments were probably a little bit different. But I was always like weird or not normal, or I had too much emotion, or I was just too much, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually understand how you become more with a transit, or with how the planets are moving through, and they like highlight you and highlight something inside of you, it's such a beautiful celebration. And listen, this is where we're going. And I just got this download right before the interview, so it's not in your outline at all. Because you're a Capricorn, we are going to get deep right now. I want to talk about all the heavy, heavy Capricorn energies we've been in since like
full body chills with you just asking me about this, because my life,
right?
I'm literally tearing.
Yeah. Since the end of December, like, especially for those of us that have been dropping into the light acceleration on the planet and the expansion, like it's been a hard, like, stop in these energies. And I'll be like, oh, the sun's moving into Aquarius. Nope. Now we're in Capricorns in Mercury, Mars, and Venus, two retrogrades in there. By the way, BTW. And Kelsey is a Capricorn. So I want to dive into this a little bit, not just because this is going to be a timeless episode. As we know, everything is timeless, but I want to dive into your take on it, especially as a Capricorn sun. Like, how do you feel moving through those energies? And then I'm going to go further, but I'm going to pass the torch off to you right now.
Okay, fabulous. So to start, yes, it's been really intense. It's been really transformational. And really ever since Pluto entered Capricorn, which was what, 2008. Like that has been, which we'll get into more of that, I'm sure, as we go on, but like that has really started this initiation journey. And like, if we're going to bring it to my own life and how that relates, like 2008 was when my whole life changed. Like I got out of a really intense relationship that was not good for me. And I had to completely redefine who I was. This actually just came up yesterday in a different container, about like redefining your identity. That's absolutely at the core of what Capricorn brings us to. Like, where is your foundation? What stories do you tell that are who you are, or what's going on in the world around you? What's happening with politics? Like, however you apply it. And like, how do you actually go through these things and climb to where you want to be? You know, like, how do you accelerate? And what a lot of people don't talk about is Capricorn represents risks, like taking those big risks. And a lot of people have fear around that. And I've seen it show up in my own life. And which is, so when all of these planets go in that space, especially with the amount of fear that's been throughout the collective, all of life, but it seems like it's amplifying the past couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And that's really like asking us, and me, myself, like, what do I want? Where am I going? What has defined me in the past? And where do those stories limit your expansion? Because like a lot of people think of Capricorn like the goat climbing on the mountain where there's this much ledge, which is totally true. And our whole collective is doing that, especially with Pluto being there. But then this Venus retrograde on top of that, it's going into all of our relationships, our heart space entirely. So love, money, especially because we're all at home more, we're all with our people more. It is literally touching every part of our lives. And I have been asked to go deep, deep within my soul and be like, okay, do I like who I'm sitting with every day? Does this the person who's going to create what's coming up in front of me? What do I want and how do I get there? Because clearly there's all these stories we as human beings in this incarnation put in front of ourselves being like, oh, I can't do that, or, oh, I don't have enough knowledge. And Capricorn doesn't really want to mess with that energy. It's like, you told me I couldn't do what? And so there's like a lot of overcoming that's had to come up, especially with me, and just all of this expansion. So it's really been lately like putting my whole focus into something. Now, for me, that has been work. It's been very Capricornian because of my sun. That may not show up the same for everyone in the collective, depending on where Capricorn is in your chart, and what house it rules and that kind of thing. But yet really putting some direct focus into something so that, you know, we get in this mind state, especially in the digital age, where like, we're freaking all over the place. There's so much inundated in our field. I pride myself on being an epic multitasker, but all of these transits since December, all I've heard is focus. Stop doing a million things at the same time. I don't care how productive that feels. You're splitting your focus too much, and not anything is getting done at 100%. And that's a huge bit that I want to just add to anyone out there that might feel like they're spread too thin. You might feel like it's the best thing to do because you're doing all the things, when really maybe reorganize your viewpoint on that and like cycle into something, finish that, feel that gratitude, pay it respect, and then move on. Because you might notice you get so much more accomplished. And that's really shown up for me in the past couple months.
Yeah. And I mean, right along with that, you have to engage your muscle of adaptability and trust. So you have to surrender, because we're always getting the messages, especially those of us that are really amplifying our soul's calling now, right? We are stepping into the mission that we came in to share. And so we're all, a lot of us, developing these new businesses as who we really are, as what we were meant to be doing, meant to be in the world, right? And so we get all these messages of like, you have to do all these things for success. And I quoted that. And so just surrendering and trusting that when you shift into a new energy, like what you're saying, like focus into this one energy, that the results are going to be bigger, and you're going to have more and different and new expansive opportunities from creating such a linear, like I don't want to say linear, but such an intense passion in one area. I'm trying to use really expansive language. But it's interesting because you already mentioned Pluto in Capricorn, and that also has to do a lot with the dismantling, because Pluto is the part that will like
100%.
destroy things. So it's like, how much can you surrender and trust into destroying the person or the persona that has been developed based on other people's expectations around us? So that's
Absolutely.
really the courage and the risk taking, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. And that's happening so much in the collective because of this transit. It's igniting everyone. And, like lots of people are unconscious to it, and that's okay. It's still happening. Like the awakening is still here. And we're about to hit that peak where that's really going to show up in all of the ways throughout the collective, especially, here in the US. And it's it's this beautiful experience to where if you're choosing into alchemizing your life in the way that you want it, it is bringing on so many gifts, like so many. And it's gonna look a little crazy, but you make a mess as you're trying to make art, right? Like it
Right.
gets messy, you get paint on your clothes, shit happens, but it is beautiful. And so I know that there's a lot of mixed signals around how that's going to affect us and that kind of thing. But if we always are stepping into our divinity, knowing who we are, and that's been really all even through since the beginning of 2020, honestly, with a lot of, especially with the Pluto and Saturn conjunction that happened, like that energy throughout 2020 and has built until now. And that's kind of what's passing off because Saturn is backing off and Pluto's kind of taking over and doing its thing. Where it was in these crazy cardinal signs and it was really activating, and Saturn again is this great teacher, the ruler of Capricorn, to like bring it all in. And it's just been really activating on who are you actually at your core, not who do you think you are, who do you want to be for them. All the people pleasing, all of that BS has not worked. And it's almost like the more you did it, this is what showed up in my personal life anymore, the more you try to people please, the more it backfires because it's not actually what they wanted because it wasn't authentic. Ooh, that hit me different.
Yes.
And but I'm just going to sit with that for a minute. So, really being in your truth, because that's actually what other people want, even though they don't know they want it yet, because they don't know who you are until you are that person.
Yes. And what a beautiful gift that we are being so supported in alchemizing that, in uncovering that, in discovering it, in returning. And like I keep saying, like we're evolving back to like how we came in perfectly as these divine beings, and it got learned out of us, it got programmed out of us, suppressed and repressed and muted and all of these things. So it's like such a gift that we actually get to bloom as the beautiful seeds and flowers that we truly are. And even just having the trust around the people, the jobs, the connections, the locations, all of that gets answered. It's like the only thing that we need to do is like jump into this evolution of ourselves, and the rest of it falls into place. But we've never learned that process. We've never learned the process of ease and manifestation, right? That we're truly good at. We are truly miraculous at. Miracles are supposed
100%.
to be normal, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah. And you and I are both such big embodiment enthusiasts. And so, like, to me, like everything in the celestial system is in your cells. Like, it's literally inside every one of your cells.
100% agree with you. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes. Ooh, they're all activating in a resounding yes. And what you just touched on is so beautiful because it is reflected in the nodal shift. Which, I mean, we can obviously jump into talking if you want to, but like that returning to our essence, to plant the seeds, all of that energy is really showing up in this shift out of Gemini into Taurus, because Taurus wants to ground. Taurus wants to cultivate. That is getting back to our simplistic essence of just the embodiment of like, okay, I go outside and I tend to my garden, and this is the rewards that it reaps for me, without all of the outstanding factors that go on in our world. So we're really like getting down to that simple core beauty of who we are at our essence. And that is absolutely showing up for us. And to have this embodiment, as you bring in, again, it's this perfect alignment with then the South Node being into Scorpio now, like that is so much of the root, the core, the body, all of the of course, secrets, traumas, but sexual desires, like all of the passion that lives within us and within the collective is coming up to be balanced, to be the seeds, to create the future. Like, oh, the stars are so good.
What I wanted to say is, so we're going from Sagittarius and Gemini into Scorpio and Taurus. So
Correct.
let's talk a
Yes.
little bit about the significance going from the mutable signs into the fixed signs.
So that's a lot of the mutable energy that we have felt. I mean, you can just look at what has been going on. There's been nothing that's been necessarily secure over the past, it's an 18-month cycle. Let's start there for everyone. And so reflect on the past 18 months and how much has changed, where it's going this way. No, it's going this way. This is showing up. Like you wake up the next morning and everything's different. I'm going to work today. You're not going to work today. Like,
Yeah.
it's been all over the place. That is, I mean, classic mutable energy. And yet it has brought a lot of change. It's brought a lot of awareness. Like Gemini has brought things to the surface to where, we're communicating more, and not everybody likes what's being communicated, but it's coming up. It got us into the mind though. And, like that is a place where a lot of people can get stuck, although it had to get there first so that people could be like, okay, what is going on? What's the truth? What do I actually believe in? Especially like Sagittarius, it questioned and really like disrupted our freedom. Like Sagittarius is all about taking that flight, going for it. What literally happened? We couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't fly.
Yeah.
And so with that being the South Node, like that has these karmic lessons that show up for it and are really like, okay, what is important? And escaping, which Sagittarius can also represent, is not working. Like we can't just run away from it or go to our 9 to 5 and pretend that everything else in our life is fine. That got ripped away from us. I'm very happy about that because we needed to question our lives because we just kind of got into one of these or this, so it really brought us then into, like our whole frontal area, like I'm looking around and paying attention. And so now what's happening with the North Node shifting into Taurus is we're going from our mind and we're dropping into our heart, which is because then Taurus is ruled by Venus. So that is all heart space. And this is such a delicious transit because, you get so stuck in your mind. There's a saying that goes, if you get in your head too much, you're dead. And like, it's a little abrupt, sure. But the logic will just talk us through everything if we don't ever connect it to our heart. I think they need to work together. It needs to be a both and. You don't want to not have thoughts at all. That's part of our magic, right? Is we can create so much with our mind. It's like the strongest alchemizing magician that lives right here.
Yeah.
But it's fueled by the heart. Otherwise it doesn't work. And so for Taurus, really activating this, again, it gets to plant the seeds. It gets to nurture new earth. It really gets to activate who we want to be in this cohesive gathering energy, especially with this whole age of Aquarius that we're bringing in as well. So this shift, I feel like, is really going to still bring up, then as we talk about the South Node, Scorpio ruled by Mars, and Mars is also making some transits this year that's going to amplify that energy. But this is like also bringing up, if we're going to talk about the collective energy, then like investments, money, debts, toxicity, even. So like pollution, things that are happening in the planet, toxicity in our body, things that want to escape, that want to get released, that want to get transmuted from Earth, Gaia, and from us as beings. And so, we can see some energetics of where things want to come to the surface within the collective. Secrets are going to be heard. And yet then there can be nurtured. So that's the both and between that Scorpio and Tauran line. Like they, it has that mother aspect. Like Taurus really wants to feel comfortable and grounded wherever it's decided to plant, and so where then can we really love on those spaces as things come up that aren't working anymore? And that again goes back to Pluto, because this is all connected. This whole conversation is gonna all come together because that's exactly what the planets do and how they show us these pieces so that we can make it cohesive. We can always make it work together for us, not to us.
Yes. Yes. And that's interesting because you threw in the age of Aquarius and I was like, oh, yeah. And that's fixed as well. And so we've got
Right.
all of this fixed sign energy. So it feels like these next 18 months with the Pluto, especially the Pluto return of the USA, we're going to have so much more with the revelations have always been coming in, but I think with the mutable signs, it's been like, oh, do I believe it? Don't I believe it? Do I believe it? Don't I believe it?
Right.
And now I feel like in our bodies, like especially with the Taurus, the Taurian energy, our bodies are going to be like, that's truth, that's not truth. And it's going to help us make like clear decisions, like moving forward, knowing the truth instead of, really just like kind of swimming, not really sure which shore to swim towards, right?
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
that's interesting. Okay, so we're just flowing in this convo.
I love
But
it.
what would if you were going to give 2022 an energy, what would the energy be?
Ooh. Well, you said some of it right there. And I can't really put it into one word, but it's focus, it's clarity, and connection comes through a lot. Let's see, does anything else want to come in right now? Community really is still
Mm,
like really coming together as who we are. So like there's that direct focus of who I am, but
mhm,
then connecting with people, not being afraid to connect. We've
mm,
been pushed into these spaces of separation so
mhm.
much, and yet we really get to expand from a place to where we bring our unique gifts to the table because you're the only one that gets to do it like you. And you and I can get together and we can make magic happen. And that connection is something that is priceless. And everything that's going together, I think just astrology in general, you can look at it and see, how do these planets connect to make these energies happen? How do we get to connect to create energy, forward motion, moving, always expanding, always growing, just like the universe? Like they are absolutely a reflection of us and we are a reflection of them. And so really coming into that space as we're building towards Aquarius, as like into this new age, we are the bridge, we are that space in between. And that is really alchemizing. This is an epic time to be alive. And like there are so many transits that we are only being able to like actually be in, which is also the planet Pluto return, which I know we're going to get into. But like, yeah, it's such a beautiful space for this abundance and this growth. So thank you for asking. That was really beautiful to sit in.
Yes, and it's so interesting because I just had a convo last night about how people are ready to connect again, and it actually has to do with this fixed energy. They're ready to make the decision, and it also has to do with now having the body consciousness of the revelations that are the reveals that are coming out. And
Absolutely.
they're no longer ignoring them. It's like our bodies don't let us ignore the truth anymore.
Yeah.
And, it has always come up as dis-ease and discontentment, but that was normalized in our medical system. Like, oh,
Right.
dis-ease is normal. It's
Right.
not. We're
No,
actually meant to
it's
be
not.
walking around really well,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
flowing. Yeah. And so I feel like because now our bodies are accepting the truth. So my energies for 2022 are it's the year of inspired action. And that's
Mhm.
because it's like we are now in our full reality check
Yeah.
where we are feeling the truth in a way that we were never able to before. And I think it's a lot of the fixed energy coming
Yeah.
in. And so now we're making the decisions like, oh, we don't have to be scared of getting together anymore. Like now we really understand what's happening, how to work with it, how we work with ourselves, where to go. Right. And so then
Yes.
we take the inspired action. And I see people like the visions I'm getting are people are finally getting out of the, programming of scarcity and like false security, and they're going to use their money in new ways where they are going to invest in people's message, right? So
Yeah.
they're going to
Right.
invest in each other's courses, in
Yes.
following a mentor who's speaking their language, who's literally helping them be well. Like you can feel yourself get healthier in your cells when you're vibrating in that frequency with people.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also perfectly highlighted by both Taurus and Scorpio. Like they both deal with different aspects of our finances and where we put our money, how we've decided where the money goes, how it flows, all of that. And this forward momentum also, we just, a week ago had Uranus go direct. And Uranus is in Taurus. So the North Node being in Taurus is now amplified by Uranus, and is amplified by this magical connection that we also have to the divine to bring that awareness into our lives. And the way that it's blasted onto the collective has really, like everybody talks about how we have more photonic light coming into the planet than we ever have. The magnetic shield is down. Well, so much of that on a science aspect, sure, it means something. But if we combine the science with the magical that we all are, what's happening then is our bodies are holding so much more light. So yeah, it's going to clear out things that look like disease, that are going to look like pains. And, people are going to suffer with certain aspects. Like I cleared my kind of tension, energetic headaches. I suffer from migraines chronically as a child because I didn't know how to manage all the light frequency and energetics that was coming into me. And so when I found this epic spiritual path, I really healed that. Well, the past few months have been insane because it's just blasting so much. And so instead of being out for like 3 days, now I'm just, down for one, and I do all my spiritual practices. But as these big shifts happen, I have really felt them coming in and opening up more space for us to awaken, for us to stand in there and be like, okay, now I'm ready to make these decisions. So absolutely, like what you said is so perfectly divine, because it is here to collapse all the old structures that we don't want to play with anymore. So we really get to create and birth this new energy, because there's just so much coming in all the time. And like the planets, the divine all want to be like, here are the codes, here you go, let's do it, let's wake up. Rebuild.
Well, and I think that's why I do have some appreciation for the hard transits like what we're in right now, because they actually require you to rest. And we need to heed that call. We are not supposed to be on 24/7. We're supposed to be getting good deep sleep, because that's when our pineal gland is the most activated. We're connecting cosmically during that time. But girl, you said the magic MFN word, which is direct. I cannot wait for these planets to go direct in February all the way until May. This is going to be.
Me too. I am so excited
good
for that. It's going to be so activating. I feel like if anyone here listening is like, I'm not really sure, I've got this project, make it happen in that window, because there's going to be so much moving energy to push you through to do whatever and accomplish it. Like, feel like you're on the top of the world. You're the king, you're the queen, you're manifesting your own reality. So then when things go into retrograde, we get into eclipse season, like all this other stuff happens. Like 2022 is still going to be intense. It's just how we decide to manage our life through it, how we decide to look at it and know that it's happening, know that we want to alchemize it and use it for our good, use it to access all of these deeper codes that live within us. Because like, it's not like, oh yeah, we're going back to normal. That's not happening. It's not a thing. Like
zero thing there.
No, we are done with that. And like to have, Pluto return, then we have a Mars return. We have all of these really intense aspects happening for us, for the collective, which, I mean, it's going to be revolutionary. Like I'm just so excited to live at this time. And I really want other people to feel just as excited. Like, you don't have to be like, oh shit, what's happening? Like, yeah, thank you. Right. Really use this. And that's the thing, is it's here. You might not be an astrologer. You can listen to one, you can talk to one, you can Google some stuff. There's always things there to give us the answers so that we can see where it fits into our lives.
Right. I mean, in so many of my moon ceremonies that I do, we talk about the hard energies and we honor them. And I'm like, even with all of this, all the dark that we're uncovering and working through, like powering through this dark, right? I don't want to say powering, but it is power, because it takes courage and it takes risk to go there.
Be in the empowerment of it too,
Yes. And that's where we get the expansion on the other side. And so I'm always like, y'all, we get to do this. We get to be telepathic in a way that we were always meant to be. We get to experience this, but you have to have intentional responses. I mean, I always tell people you're a product of what you practice. And we have been practicing unconscious negative belief patterns and thought
Mm.
patterns of other people throughout our lives. So now
Yes.
is the time to make, this is where I'm saying inspired action, y'all. Now is the time to make the clear decision to do your intentional practices of alignment every day, because then you are going to work powerfully with all of these energies. And you're going to, and in my class, I'm like, the biggest tagline, if you call it a tagline, like the biggest inspiration of it is, do you want to stay in balance and in your sovereignty and feeling well while the external world crumbles around you? Because we have that opportunity.
Yes, 100%. I love that. Keep sharing that and adding that into people's lives because it is so important. And that's the thing, everything's an opportunity, and it all is all based on patterns, which means you can always take aligned, inspired action to change your pattern. Get into your body, which I know you promote. And, like it's all about starting with your physiology, like move your body, dance it around, do some yoga, go for a run, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that will always shift your state of consciousness. And then as soon as you put in this knowledge of like, okay, I'm going to meditate. Okay, I'm going to look into the stars. I'm going to look into my birth chart today. Like get the app, do the thing. If it's going to give you, some tools to get through your day, go for it, because that will make all the difference. And it creates a new pattern. If you just set it up every day, take out all the restrictions so you can just like, roll out of bed, turn your phone back on. I like to put my phone on airplane. And then,
Yes.
like go into something after, like I do my breath work and that kind of stuff. But, whatever is going to give you the tools, like what's going on today, what's happening energetically, rather than like just going to look at the news, all that stuff, which I know a lot of us don't even do anyway, because it's all BS. Though, there are so many other things that can help us through this really incredible time. And yet it all comes from, also, you can just plug in and go up to your higher self and be like, what's up today? It doesn't have to be hard.
Well, right. And those are the skills that we literally can develop, but
Yeah.
we actually have to be intentional to get back, to take off the layers of trauma and wounding and karma so that our cells can vibrate in that frequency. And we have such a grand availability when we're in our fluidity, when we're in the flow and the fluctuation of the planets instead of resisting the shifts. And what you said there, I want to say, like, these heavy Capricorn energies are a perfect time to like be more structural about it,
Yeah.
read the book, do the exercise, write in your journal, like do the structural things, all while holding this very huge expansive potential of what's coming on the other side of that. And so this is what I wanted to chat with you about. I'm surprising you with this one, but I want to talk about how limiting our human calendar year is, and how it creates this really big disconnect for people, because it's all the Capricorn energies at the new year. And then externally, the programming is telling us like, start some new, reset yourself and start some new intentions and be external is what
Yeah.
our New Year's celebration is telling us. And then people think there's something wrong with them because all they want to do is huddle under a blanket while they're supposed to be doing all of these New Year's resolutions. And how different that is from the actual new year, which is in the spring when everything comes to life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're touching on this, just to add this into people's lives, because again, it goes right back to it being a pattern, it being a program. And our, kind of Gregorian calendar even has really taken our natural cycles and eradicated them so that we don't find our flow. And honestly, to get into just, it at its core, it's a control factor. It's to get us disconnected. It's absolutely to make us more confused. And clarity is what creates divinity. Confusion keeps you stuck. Like it really does not allow for expansion, because we split ourselves into multiple timelines, which is again going back to that first thing, is like finding the focus. And it doesn't allow us to focus when we always feel like we're messing it up, and that's a huge thing, especially when you're in Capricorn energy and then you feel like you're not doing it right. it will blow you out for months. And it happens every single year. And most people are in the cold. There's not a lot of sunshine. They're not moving much. And then they are depressed. That's why seasonal depression is so rampant, is because we are not in the natural cycles of our bodies, paying attention to what the planets are doing and what the sun is actually calling in as a new year, the new season, right? So absolutely. And I don't really celebrate New Year's like that anymore, because I really never did, to be honest. But the more and more I got into astrology, it became more and more apparent to me. And I also come from a very magical kind of Celtic background. And so like that has so much weight in the seasons and what the moons are doing. And the moons are on a 13-month cycle, essentially, like cycle, so that the 12 months doesn't even really fit in it. So there's really been this pull away from then 13 as the number of the divine goddess worship, listening to our bodies, our intimate cycles within ourselves as females, and males have their own cycle as well. And then, putting it into this like rigid 12-month. And there's a both and with the energy of how the astrology gets to represent in a sense of degrees in that, like the 12 zodiacs as well. And so I do really like the consistency of when we're on an axis, like the Tropic of Capricorn to Cancer, like we do get to gauge so many of these things based on that. Yet there is still this femininity. It's where the masculine and the feminine meet in union to create a structure, but then to also just feel into the energies, be in your seasons. So this gives us like this understanding of where to go, but then we get to deposit all of the codes within that by being in that feminine energy, male, female, or indifferent. So yeah, I don't like to follow a calendar really in that same way, other than we all speak it. I mean, time is the same way, right? It's just kind of this pattern. But if we release some of the expectation that the outside world has put on us to be in these cycles in that way, I think we can get much more in tune with our body listening. That's why I like tap into some transits that are going on, find out what, like your major planets are doing in your own birth chart, because then you'll know when different things are happening and you can set goals, like you said in the beginning, for yourself. So you're like, oh, I'm really amplified in this. Like right now for me with all of this Capricorn stuff, like I have the moon squaring everything. Like I'm stacked in the 7th and 8th house and everything is opposing. And so I can get things done, but I also have to be soft on myself, because it's not sunshine and rainbows the whole time. And I have to mean it. I have to want it. Honestly, I wouldn't have made it through my Saturn return time of my life if I didn't know what that was. I would have lost my mind in a lot of ways. And so that's where just knowing these cycles, knowing the patterns, knowing your nodal return, which is what you just went through, is so important. Throw the calendar out. Who cares?
Right. I mean, it's these constructs of time and calendar time that have completely limited us. They have disconnected us before we're even unfolding our journey, which is, it's like, that's why I want to be talking about it, especially now that people are feeling like, literally, even if you're not tapping into the energies and like, even astrology or what we're talking about, your body is shifting. Everyone's body is shifting at this point, and that's what I love. So that's what I keep trying to like touch on for people. Like your cells are speaking to you. They are your abilities, your divine abilities are coming online. And if you choose to practice them, if you choose to intentionally spend time learning about them, relearning about them, I should say, then they are going to explode. Like your expansion is going to be wild, and your life is going to be filled with ease and joy and wellness while shit goes down. But we have to start even just revealing how limited and destructive these constructs are and have always been. And once we get into those natural cycles and the rhythm of our body, it's like there's no stopping us. And we honor the downtimes, right? We honor when we are supposed to rest. I mean, just for an example, we get controlled through our pineal gland. When we don't get adequate sleep, and get that melatonin rising, we're easily controlled by fear and emotional manipulation when our pineal gland is not strong and healthy. And so we've got toxins in our environment and we're sleeping less than we ever have as humans. And that is when we heal the most. So we've been put on this hamster wheel to like try to meet some bar, some level of expectation of who we should be as humans and how to pay our bills and, you know, all the things that go
Yeah.
along with that. And all the while we have been tapping into this collective of fear subconsciously because our pineal glands aren't functioning the way that they're meant to function.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just gets inundated by all of the, social media, just everything that's tech that we do in our lives. Right. And it's kind of this separation, into a lot of AI and then our natural, just human instincts and like where we're at. And I'm not going to say one or the other is necessarily like better or not good for us. Like obviously we just talked about how the digital plane is great for us to connect and do things like this. And really how that is so brought up by Neptune, which is making a big transit with Jupiter this year. But Neptune rules all of that kind of mystical, magical, but it's also super AI. It's super artificial intelligence and like digital identities, which is why we're seeing the rise in like this metaverse thing and, cryptocurrencies and all that kind of stuff. And so like this year is also going to have a significant choice where that is going to increase. It's going to be expanded. So, like there is Jupiter and Neptune are making a conjunction. I'm just going to get into it because it's super magical and it touches on so much that we've just been talking about. So this is mutable water, boundless water in Pisces, boundless. That is a mutable sign. And so what is happening is like, I keep hearing a spiritual tsunami because
Yes.
it has this water and this expansive Jupiter, and it is so different, unique, individual when it comes to Neptune. And it carries so much of that unique power of creation, spirituality, but that obviously can then go the other way because we use that as like, we understand we're gods, right? And then we create other realities, which is created in the digital plane, which we can create by manifesting our life in front of us. But that is getting skewed right now. And other people want to go take it another direction, use the same magic, but apply it to creating a life where you can just sit your physical body down on a couch, never move, and live a whole life. I think that could be applied to then just manifest the life you want right here because it's tangible. That's what we came to Earth for, is to live, to feel, to be in it. Well, but we're going to see a big highlight of that this year. And so Pisces has this unique magic of really going to the depths, like it's the two fish. There's always kind of this underbelly happening. So you get this big energy play of what gets to come to the surface. And then Jupiter wants to expand. It's bringing truth. It's bringing all these codes. And Jupiter finally, now with the North Node leaving Sagittarius, Jupiter's back online. We have not felt the full epic power of Jupiter in like 2 years. So that already has shown up. Like I already feel it being really sensitive to it, but as like big transits, including this one, are going to continue throughout this year, we're going to feel it amplify bigger and bigger and bigger, which I'm super excited about. And there's actually this window. So it's exact on April 12th at 23 degrees. Yet there is a window where it comes in within 1 degree of itself from the 7th, so April 7th through the 17th. And that energy can bring there's so much. I feel like this is probably, you asked me before what my favorite transit was this year, and it's this one. Just because it gets to broaden our minds. It gets to touch on all the things that we've just been talking about, how we're pulling it in, more awareness, what we want to do, how we want to connect, all of that energy. And it is so harmonious to connecting with all living beings. And that's where that like great expanse, like that deep breath, that being the entire ocean really gets to come from. Now, yes, is there some depths and some dark parts and some scary shit in the ocean we don't know about? Also, yes.
Yes.
So like this can be a little if we let it go there, it can be unrealistic. It can
Mhm.
be ungrounded, which goes against all this Capricornian energy that we're going in, which can still lead to a space of confusion. So I do want people to be aware of it. You know, like I'm not just a sunshine and rainbows astrologer. Like, let's get to the real stuff. Let's get to those hard transits, like we talked about. And so Neptune also can bring up substances. So like, watch out for addictions. And it doesn't have to just look like drugs or alcohol. You know, like it can look like being on your phone. It can look like just being
Mhm.
in drama. It can look like gossip. It, you know, like it can look like I eat really well, but I eat too much, even, you know, like whatever. Just be aware of where those trends are showing up, because those are things that want to get cleared from your system, that are coming up for a reason, so that you get to look into them, especially if they're bigger, intense ones that are changing your lives, your relationships, you know, like all that kind of stuff. Know that Neptune absolutely will be there, and then Jupiter's going to expand it. So Jupiter will bring the gift no matter where it is.
Mm.
So you can choose to put it in something magnificent, or you can choose to put it in something detrimental. It will expand it nonetheless. Jupiter doesn't take sides. You get to decide.
Right.
Um, which I love about Jupiter. We're very close.
Well, what I want to say is, first of all, it popped into my head because an astrologer that I love always says Neptune is drugs. It's just like,
Yep.
bloop, Neptune is drugs. But
Yep.
also, what I want everyone to realize is we are ritualistic beings. We're engaging in ritual every single day. But typically, they're unconscious rituals. They're not rituals that we have divinely created and decided on for our lives. So, instead of looking at it as addictions, like these are rituals that you are continually putting energy and time and space into. And then when we amplify the wounding and trauma that has come on in the culture, we can see where, especially when we were held to a standard of like, this is what it means to be a good human, right? And now we're
Mhm.
talking about how
Mhm.
unique your imprint is, and there is no one human. Like,
Right.
there is
Yeah.
all of us in these divine beings and bodies that we get to be uniquely who we are. And once we start really honoring that, that wounding and trauma starts to lift. And I mean, we have family patterns and things like that. There's a lot to get into when you look at your shadow work.
Yeah.
But let's look at rituals. Like, start putting intention into your daily rituals, because as Kelsey said, Jupiter's going to expand whatever you're practicing, and you are practicing something every single day.
Oh, that's so
Okay,
good.
super fun
Yeah.
game, real quick, Kelsey.
Okay. Yeah.
I played this game with a friend one time, and we were like, if you could go to any planet, what planet would you go to?
Oh, I love that. So it's on brand because Jupiter. I remember the first time was actually at a retreat that Sonia and I threw together. And Jupiter is really intense because it does expand. So you don't just astral travel to Jupiter without being really in alignment, like
Mhm.
you've got to know what you're going there. Were you there for that? Did you
Mhm.
go?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I was like, wait a minute. Um, and I was raving about this story when I came back. So maybe you've already heard this. But when you're a kid, everybody's like, oh, when you're having a hard time, go to your happy place, go to your happy place. And so like, whatever, I manifested a happy place in my mind, as we all do on some level. And, I'm like, I don't know, maybe this place exists somewhere. Maybe it doesn't. When I start traveling the world when I'm older, maybe I'll find out, it was always kind of that. But I just created it. Well, then we went to freaking Jupiter, and that's been my happy place this whole time. And I had no clue I was tapping into that, because I wasn't astral traveling consciously as a
Right.
child,
Mhm.
but unconsciously I was doing it all the time. And that made a lot of sense to me on when, if I would go there upset, why I would get more upset. Like it wasn't
Mm.
always happy. And then I would get transported there lots of times when I was happy and it was beautiful and it was abundant. And so to actually tap into that consciously, go with intent. Now I've gone a few times, on my own time. I don't go to Jupiter willy-nilly just because, again, you have to be really clear. And with Jupiter being offline these past months, you really have to be secure. So yeah, it's definitely been one of my favorite planets to visit. And I'm always so grateful for when I go up to that lush landscape. So thank you for asking and bringing up that story, because it is definitely my happy place.
Yeah, I mean, as an Aries stellium, I was like, Jupiter,
Yeah.
I want to expand everything.
Yeah. I remember,
But
you have to do the projects as a kid. I was like Jupiter. Saturn's my ruling planet. I'm like, nah, give me Jupiter.
yeah, I
Saturn's
mean,
rough.
I've got the bracelet you made right here. Jupiter.
Yay.
What? There she is.
Yes. Big,
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and I love the discernment that you're putting out there, because that's why it's so important that we understand that it takes work. Like, it takes, I don't want to say work, but it takes intention in everything that you do. So you want to make sure you have the skills of being in alignment when you're working with these different energies, or understanding if you're out of alignment. Like, that's probably when you create some downtime for yourself, where you really allow the space to unfold so that you can like move through the energy that's coming. I've done a lot of that downtime in the calendar new year with all these Capricorn energies,
Mhm.
because with me and all of my Ariesness, I'm all about like forward motion and
Right. For
expansion
sure.
and all the light and all and things like that. So it's felt wildly uncomfortable, especially business wise. So you
Mhm.
really have to tap into your flexibility muscle, your fluidity muscle, and like your trust and surrender, and know that we're not always supposed to be producing 24/7. But like, when you get in alignment and you create the manifestation in other areas of your life, money comes with that. But when we just have the sole linear focus of like a money construct, the way that we've been taught to bring it in, it negates all the potential and possibilities for the rest to come in as a holistic experience.
Absolutely. And that's really where like we're shifting into that new planetary consciousness, our new earth consciousness, like whatever, you choose to call it, where we get to create out of this presence of being in alignment. It's not the nose to the grindstone anymore. And that is also represented in a lot of these transits right now, especially as we get into this conjunction. And I did want to touch a little bit on like using that power of Neptune to find that new cycle, to initiate a new pattern that you want to create, because that energy is available for us. So just use it in a way that's positive for you. If you want to start meditating every day, start with 3 minutes, and then build it a little bit at a time, that kind of thing. And you really use that a dictionary, like energy to amplify and to benefit for you. And yeah, just really getting into this new state of when we are in alignment, when you are in your heart. And that's where so much of really all of last year, really, and still Venus retrograde right now, is pulling us into our heart space. And she's about to go direct here on Saturday. And yeah, exactly. Which I'm also, though, Venus usually makes transits. Let's just touch on this real quick, super quick. It's in a sign for like about a month, give or take a little bit. And she's in Capricorn for 5 months because of this retrograde. 5 people. And that is wild with all this Capricorn, but it's really about getting into your heart. And so this retrograde for a lot of people was really intense. It's been intense for me. Like, let's get real. And it's not always like, oh, Venus expanding heart, but it's the necessary pieces for us to build onto this new space, to go into this completely new uncharted territory that we are forging as a collective society. And I just love that she gets to rise now as the morning star. She goes from her evening star phase into her morning star after her 40 days and nights of darkness, right? She goes to the underworld. She goes inward to really alchemize, sit, slow down, be in that uncomfortable darkness that lives within all of us. So that has shown up all this last month. And so I get it. It's sticky. It's gooey. I don't want to be here. Oh,
Yeah.
but that's the beauty of it. And so then now she's going to rise in just a few days, beaming this new light from the sun. In the morning, I'm shining. I'm here. I'm present. You're still going through the structures. You're still laying out new paths because she's still in Capricorn for months. But this energy is new, it's bright, it's shiny, it is revitalizing, and it is ready to alchemize all this other energy, especially again, as like Pluto's still in Capricorn, making these crazy transits. It's still going to be all through next year, but there's these aspects to where they get to harmoniously work together, and we really get to alchemize in a brand new way.
Interesting, because it just kind of hit me that through like an additional support of this Venus retrograde, where I mean, I'm going to be real. I've been talking some shit about it because I'm like, this Aries is so done with this.
Okay, I haven't really loved it, honestly, but
Okay, but what I'm feeling as
yeah,
you're saying that is like, oh wow, this was our opportunity to go into like a deep, even personal transformation right
yes,
before the Pluto return hits the
turn.
USA, when we're going to go through a big external transformation. So we were actually given the opportunity to work deeply inside of ourselves. And then as we start to rise, right, as Venus goes direct, Pluto's
Yep,
going to come and hit the US again
yep,
and like create some mayhem. I mean, I think that we should be honest about
yeah,
it.
we
That's
should be
why you've
honest.
got to use these fluctuations and transits to your best ability so that you're in the alignment with them. It doesn't mean you're in expansion all the time. It means you're in the alignment of the potential that's always there for you. So real quick, let's just kind of blow through the Pluto return of the
Yeah.
USA. Pluto is all about like dismantling or even destroying something in order to do the rebuild, which is, I feel like we've been doing that on a personal level as it's kind of been happening in the collective. And if we thought it was big then, I think it's going to get a lot bigger now.
You are so right. And like, whew, this is really intense. And we could actually have a whole hour conversation about it. So I will try to hone it into these key points. But what's really beautiful, again, with the alignment, which I just want to point out is to people, because astrology is epic, is that us talking about Venus going through her retrograde, going through the underworld, right? Like that's literally how, it's not my words, it's referred to that, where she's in her 40 days and 40 nights. So like, then that's coming up, right? And now Pluto is going into this Pluto return. And what Pluto is really seen as is like, as an archetype, is the Persephone going through the river of Styx. Like that is the transformation. So it goes through again, all of that kind of dark, ooey gooey. Also, South Node in Sagittarius, or in, excuse me, in I've been saying that for a long time. Scorpio now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in that darkness, in that depth. So all these things are working together. I mean, again, you can't make this stuff up. It's in the stars. So that big energy is bringing transformation, but we have to see all of the dark, nasty parts. That's always what Pluto brings us. It's death and rebirth, is what most people will say if you ask them, what's Pluto stand for? Death and rebirth, which it's true as like a basic line. Obviously, it gets so much deeper than that. Although that is what we're doing as a collective. And we are about to get into this peak window. It starts, February 20th. So like as it goes through and then it's on, the degree for a while, and then it actually comes back around and it does it again in December. But let's talk about like, and it's a little bit off with like the minute stuff, so like it's spot on here in February coming up. And obviously we go from the birth of our independence as US, so from July 4th 1776, and that's where Pluto is in a transitory period for about, it's 248 years. And so that's why this is our first experience of this as a country. We can look at a lot of the patterns from, UK being through it because they've, been established for a lot longer, and watch what has happened in their history when their Pluto returns, which it's intense. There's chaos. Governments are overthrown. Financial systems totally collapse and be rebuilt. Napoleon died, Stalin died, like lots of big things happened. And I'm not saying this to fear anybody, although we have to know that transmutation is here. You thought it's happened the past couple of years. This has been the buildup. This Pluto return will absolutely be the peak to where we see all of the things actually change. When we're like, a lot of us light workers are like holding our breath, like, come on, can it happen already? Are we there yet?
I know.
And like, this is the transit to where we're going to be like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to be intense because this has been so much buildup. We finally get the release and like whew, okay, we see where the chips are falling. Now, what do we want to do? How do we want to restructure this? And so we're calling in this new sense of freedom. That's what originally our first, Pluto initiation, when we signed the declaration, was for our independence. It was for our freedom. So now in what way are we going to reclaim this new sense of freedom? How are we declaring our independence from this bullshit we don't want to live in anymore? Whew, I'm lit.
Yeah. I feel it.
And like, what else do I want to share that's like on point? So it's also going to be kicked up by the US Mars return, which not a lot of astrologers are talking about, but that's going to be like October and November. And so the fact that we're still going to be in Pluto Capricorn, having this whole aspect throughout this entire year, that happens every 2 years, but this is the first time that it's happened with Pluto. Like the return of Mars, excuse me. And so this is where we use that power, that creation, to actually keep continuing. So I feel this window, which is why I brought it up, from when we, this in February, then through October, beginning in November, where things are really going to start to change. Like they're not going to happen all overnight. That's going to be that window. And then Mars is going to give it that energy, because then it's going to go direct. It's going to hit up and return into its original space to the degree and really kick off what's coming new for us. So then the last few months of this year are going to be insane, in my opinion. Just because there's going to be so much happening. It's quantum expansion. We have been training for this our lives, but really the past few years. And this is where it's going to take form and really show up. Whew.
Yes. And I got a huge message while you were saying that, because I was like, hey, y'all, this is what I want you to feel into. As Kelsey and I are talking about this, the light line holders have been so ready and so amped up for the full death, so that we can rebuild from a place of balance and love and abundance for all, right? That, like, imagine having that feeling instead of being in the fear of what's happening, or like the fear of change, or things not being like quote unquote normal as they used to be. Imagine being in that space of excitement that so many of us are. It feels really good here. And I want you all to feel that too, instead of fearing, because it's going to be big, it's going to be chaotic. And the more that we stay in our healthy pineal gland, in our full alignment and divinity, where we hear the messages and we know exactly, we get the ancient wisdom codes, we know how to heal our bodies ourselves, like that, we are our first line of health. When we can do that and we stay in that vibration and that frequency, then it only helps the rebuilding come sooner. If we get out of the resistance and get into the excitement of what's possible, come with us. come here.
Let's do this. Yeah, we are excited. We are ready. Like, I will help share the tools, and you guys can manifest this. And that's where like that community aspect of we all do this together. And we have been so amplified on like making this happen, making epic changes. And that's where I really do see, on a spiritual level, us then bringing all of that energy and that valor, and I am doing this, that warrior energy, to the surface together. That's where we get to come into harmony. That's where like we can ground this in, use the Aquarian wave to really like, it's which is so fascinating, because it's the water bearer, but it's the container. And like we shift through these ages, and it's like, I'm going to get a little astro. So essentially we were in Pisces, right? Pisces is the water. And Aquarius has this basin, right, full of water, and it's dumping the water out. It's adding the consciousness onto the planet. Yes, all of those things were necessary. We seeded a lot of consciousness. We realized what spirituality even was, the coming of Jesus, all the whole stories, right? And now we really get to stand in our power and create that, understand what's happening there. And if we fast forward, obviously through the ages, we're going towards then after Aquarius, where it goes backwards. So we go into the age of Capricorn, where things would be really structured. So we right now are creating that within our community, and 100% Pluto is here to give us the ability to do this. This had to work together. We would not activate the golden age in the way that we've all heard, felt, talked, channeled, been in this age of Aquarius, if it weren't for this return happening right now. And we're alive for it. like
Yeah.
this really gets to activate all of that on a deeper level that we just didn't have full access to, but we, needed to be ready as a collective. That's why we, people talk about getting, the grand awakening and hitting mass capacity and, like the general population and all those things that people say is really so that we can activate the codes and hold this amount of light because it's coming into our bodies. And there's so many of us that are like, okay, I'm ready. I've decided I am taking this on. And then other people are going to get activated and we can hold the space for that to happen because it's happening regardless.
I mean, butterfly effect in full effect. I am all
100%.
about the butterfly effect, So every time even one person gets activated and taps into the frequency, the faster this is going to avalanche because we are ready. I mean, in my course, I've gone quantum. I've taken all of my lifetimes as a healer because I'm like, you know what? This used to freak people out and I just wouldn't go there with them. And I'm like, I trust the message that you are ready. You don't need to go through all kinds of, classes and whatever else to get here. Like, you're ready. Let's do this. I even had this beautiful moment the other day, one of those quantum moments where I suddenly got transported into, a parallel life where I was in the full age of Aquarius, looking back and working with myself now.
Woo!
It was beautiful because for a
Yeah.
while I was I had a friend say this on a podcast once and he was like, I'm kind of pissed. It's like a 2000-year age and I don't get to see it through. And then I was like, oh no, I don't get to be here for the full glory of the age of Aquarius. And then I had that moment, that full embodiment of my other self that's in it. And I was like, nice. Yes. I feel good.
That, right?
It feels good.
I always, I tell when I write the astrology calendar for our Moon Babe Society, like monthly group, I always look at it later throughout the month after I've written it. And I'm like, what did past me say to future me? Cause like, I really need that. And that's that same energy. And we get to be quantum, multidimensional. And especially the more we tap into this, who's to say we don't get to just be like, oh, cool, I'm going to go check that out. Like remote viewing style from now into then. And then even like incarnate, if that's what we choose, we want to be here to like help guide, obviously we've lived multiple lifetimes before. Now we're just mastering the remembrance, holding on to those codes as we continue to go through, not having to forget and remember every time. We just get to hold it, possess it, understand it, call in that ancient divinity of being like, okay, I'm a multi-consciousness being, I'm embodying this, and I'm going to go do things on earth. This is great.
The potential is wild. Yeah. And like anything you've ever heard about like miracles in the Bible or things happening out there, you get to have all of that. But you have to choose it. Our guidance system, our cosmic support, our higher self will not intervene without our ask. We need to ask to co-create. I like to use this analogy because I used to teach childbirth. And what science has done in childbirth is it's taken away the job of the baby. And so that's why childbirth has gone so awry. And so we actually have to realize that we're co-creating with a baby for birth, right? But we're co-creating with the universe every day and our higher consciousness. But if we're not asking and we're not like intentionally tapping in, there's a block, there's a stagnation there. And then we're kind of left to our own devices. But y'all, when you easily release that block, when you start tapping in and you start asking to co-create, miracles will happen instantly. It's amazing. I love this. I love getting the messages. I love having the clairvoyance, all the clairs. It's so great to be this magical being. And I want this for everyone.
I agree. I really do. It's been really beautiful to tap into. And another piece for, just someone on their spiritual journey that's like right there is, then yes, you have to ask 100%. You've got to ask, you've got to lay the foundation in that way. You have to believe it. You have to believe it's possible for you. It's not just possible for me. It's not possible for you. It's possible for everyone listening to this, everyone that they're sitting next to, everyone that they live next to, like 100%, but we need to believe it. And anything is possible if you believe it. And that again is highlighted by this Jupiter and Neptune. And I think more and more people will understand that they have that power throughout this year. And I'm so excited for it. I'm so happy to share this knowledge out here. Like, I love that we got to have this conversation so that it gets out to more people, because like, that's absolutely the choice. Show up, decide you want it, decide you're tapped in, you're constantly connected. You have guides, angels, the universe, your higher self, all the things that are always there to implant all of these beautiful codes, and they get to be divine gifts and messages throughout your day. And so like, I'm taking each step with alignment. You know, what is that? Take it and then move on, keep listening. And that's where, again, a lot of this has taught us we need to slow down to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. It's a beautiful representation again of our outside affecting our inside, and how we're really just one and the same.
Yes. And I mean, you being a human means that you have all the magical potential. Like, we all came in with these codes and this ability. I also want to say that it's important that you go back to your alignment, because our external programming and world, I mean, it's intense out there, and it's working to pull you out constantly. All the messaging, all the sensationalism, all the fear culture, it's constantly working to pull you out. So that's when tap into this age of Aquarian energy, stand in your sovereignty, and keep bringing yourself back to your alignment. This is what I tell people, because I teach balance, you know, with embodiment and dynamic motion. And I'm like, do you know how I practice being in balance? I go back to it. I fall out and then I practice again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I just want to ask real quick. You said that you're labeling this conjunction in April as a spiritual tsunami. Do you see that actually kind of happening, like even a greater awakening, like happening like at that time?
I really do. I really do. I think there's going to be like this flood. So I feel like water is consciousness. Water to me is God. It is spirit. It holds this frequency of love, no matter what form. It goes through 3 stages, the Trinity, triple, like, again, that's a whole other conversation. Yet the amount of spirituality and awakening and codes that are held in our water, like, that's really where it goes through. It goes through water and then blood, because it's liquid, like the same thing, water. So through the ages, through the timelines, that's how it's going to get activated. And I really do feel that then is going to wash within us. It is, but also like, it can be practical things too, like choose what kind of water you're actually putting into your body, that kind of thing. And then even the excessive water that we could have, like if you have we might have a lot of rain, you know, there might be a lot of big things happening on a planetary grid that will affect, like in the past years, like in 1856, we had the same conjunction, flooding all over, like massive flooding. And so, but this brings a whole new wave of consciousness. When I see epic rains, I'm like, okay, what is the universe trying to say? Like, where are the codes coming in? I have this, you know, as we talk about our gifts and stuff, when I get really emotional and I don't come back into my alignment, I blow pipes. Doesn't matter where I am, in houses, all the things, like fire hydrants. It's a gift that I really need to hone in. I believe it's connected to my divine goddess with Isis, because like she created the Nile, right, from her tears. So there's that. I've got a handle on it now that I know it's real. But so I do see that coming through in it. So if we're seeing this, we're seeing massive water hit the grid in some way, know that that's bringing consciousness. Don't be afraid of it. Lean into it. Go outside, collect rainwater, drink it, do something, you know, like whatever, cleanse it, you know, bless it, do the thing, but really be in that space. Like, I love to go dancing out in the rain, because I feel like I just absorb codes through my body and really like be in the experience of whatever nature is trying to communicate. And I get so many codes that way. And so I would really just kind of like, I'm curious to see how it's going to show up, because I do really feel like the whole cosmos is coming in to awaken, and we're going to we're riding the wave, literally. All the water references you can bring in, don't get stuck in the undertow, ride the wave on top, do the work ahead of time, call in your alignment, get really clear on what you want and what you're doing. And if you're not clear, write in your journal, I'm not clear, until you find clarity.
Yes. See, I love that Capricorn practicality in you. Even just collect the rainwater. Honestly, when we're all looking at homesteading more and being more local, producing our food, literally use this to your advantage. That might be why it's coming in, to give us water that we desperately need. Oh, I love it, Kelsey. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to add, y'all, right afterwards, we've got Jupiter and Aries, and that's going to be
Mhm.
moving forward with confidence and passion. So,
Absolutely.
yes.
And that's the rebirth, like Aries is the first sign, it's that initial take off, fiery energy with all of the divine innocence too, that is, like at its childlike wonder
Yeah.
to create this new abundance. And we get Jupiter online in this energy. And then with all these Mars, transits that are happening, they get to piggyback on each other because, Aries and Mars, have their romance. And so this really gets to amplify all of this Jupiter energy as well. So I love that you brought it up. I also had it in my notes because I was like, we got to talk about this. So yeah, it's really beautiful, and I'm so excited for it as well. And it's going to be really abundant for you. So I'm excited to talk to you through that.
Yes, I knew this convo was going to be amplified. Like, as soon as I really connected with you, I was like, yeah, I already saw you coming on and us having a conversation. And this is where we're timeless, y'all. So my
Yes.
Ariesness is like, yes, we are going to connect. I love her. I love her energy. I knew we had this vibe together. And then I allowed it to unfold, and it's unfolding perfectly. This is the best. I've been wanting to do a 2022 like great episode for people, and I could not imagine anybody else who would have been even close to what we brought together in this energy. So thank you, thank you, thank you, gorgeous Kelsey. I kept you over. Thank you for being here. Please just quickly answer the last question if you can. Who would
Yeah.
your dream guest be and why?
So John Dee, he's a famous astrologer. He wrote the hieroglyphic monad, and he really was like revolutionary in his time. He was astrologer for the queen, and I find his work fascinating. And it's interesting how he played both sides with like being in the government. He's not really like known if you just Wikipedia him. Astrologers like thrown in at the end, but mostly that's what he was. And he brought all this knowledge down before we had all the tools to figure out what it was. And to sit down and have a conversation with this man would be amazing. He created this tree of rarity where we, through our nodes and through how they shift and return, which we could have this conversation for you in another time, because I'm curious what showed up for you because of these teachings, where we go it's literally a tree, like a Y, where it Y's off either tyranny or divinity. And we get to, throughout these aspects throughout our lives, choose to hop. Even if we've gone the path of tyranny, we can get to divinity. It's not just like one or the other forever. Although it's a beautiful representation of how it expands and breaks us apart in duality. Like he uses words where he splits them then on one side and the other. So like adolescence, it's ado, less, and then like essence on the other side. And so there's like the essence where it gets to your divinity, and then where we like kind of monetize and break ourselves apart and think we have to keep going into this grind. And the first one happens at you're 19. What does everybody decide to do? Whether you're going to keep going to school, you're going to college, you're going to get a job, or you're going to like say fuck all that and travel the world and go expand and live your life. Like it shows up in our life so much. And he was just so revolutionary beyond his time. So yeah, I would definitely want to have a conversation with him. He's fascinating.
Yeah, nice. I'm going to look into him because that feels the same as how I've been connecting with Nostradamus lately.
Ooh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, good ones.
Beautiful. Thank
And
you.
I love the whole like even evolving back to our greatness, and like these people that went up against wild forces around them. Like they could have been killed in an instant with what they were doing. So they had to navigate it with their thinking mind and with a strategy as well in order to still share all of this like prophecy and vision and expansion in a way that like worked in really intense times.
Absolutely.
Good one.
So
Thank you so
inspiring. Yeah,
much.
of course. Thanks for asking.
Please tell everyone where they can find you.
Ooh, yes. Okay. So to find me and all my personal offerings, I have obviously a wonderful Instagram that is at mer.moonmade. I also have a website and another Instagram under that, but the website then is thegoldenrosecodes.com. And you can find me for a myriad of astrology and coaching, managerial, beautiful essence magic on there, body work, all that kind of fun stuff. And then for just straight to the core astrology knowledge, really expansive meditations, astral travels, that's Moonbabe Society. And so we do have a Instagram as well that's just at Moonbabe Society, and you can find us on moonbabesandthelighttribe.com. And there's a direct space to that. We're throwing a party actually this weekend to celebrate my 1 year of being full on the team as coordinator and full-time astrologer, which is exciting. I'm pumped for it. So everybody's invited to that, just to kind of see what our vibe's about. And yeah, we really just want to grow and expand in that container. I love the fact that I get a specific spot to do astrology every month, to have live calls, to do the meditations and that kind of stuff. It's really been beautiful for my own practice. And then obviously, yes, I do also schedule out one-on-one, chart readings and all that kind of stuff. So
amazing. Thank you so much. That's wild, because just suddenly last night, my friend and I are going to a party this weekend and we're like, oh, Venus is stationing direct. Like the energy is starting to shift, and it's almost felt dire for a while.
Like it was like, is it going to happen? And now it's like, I need it to happen.
Right.
Let's do this.
Absolutely agreed on that. Have a wonderful party. I'm so blessed that I have been connected with you and Sonia and, Moon Babes, everything and energy. I love what you're putting out, and I'm so stoked to put this episode out because I feel some big expansion in it all around. Yay.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm so blessed to be here. Thank you for opening up your space. It was totally perfectly aligned for us to do this now and talk about these transits. I've loved this container with you. So you're doing wonderful things, and it's so wonderful to see you shine.
Hey-oh. All right, y'all. Until next time. Cheers.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.